Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar today, Getting Ready for Microsoft 365 Copilot, presented by us, CDW, with some awesome support from Microsoft. That's that Evan guy at the bottom. He's a Teams guy doing Copilot today. That was his title they wanted me to put down, so there it is. My name is Sherman. I'm a solution architect for the digital workspace practice. I'm based out of Vancouver, but I support all of Canada, so it's great to see so many people interested in this little thing you might have heard about called Copilot from Microsoft. With me today as the aforementioned Evan. But before that, I'll let Karen do an intro for herself.
Thanks, Sherman. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Karen Skapski, and I work on CDW Canada's professional services delivery team. So I am the hands-on keyboard helping clients implement Microsoft 365 technologies. And I see a few familiar faces in the attendee list, so thank you for joining us today. Good to see you again. And I'll hand it back to Sherman.
Let's go to Evan for his intro, I guess.
Sure. Thanks, everyone. I'm Evan Zaleszczyk. I'm a Teams architect at Microsoft, and I focus mainly on the media workloads, Operator Connect, Teams Phone Mobile, stuff like that. But I'm doing Copilot now, just like everybody should be once they have access to Copilot, because it's going to be pervasive through many applications. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we've seen Copilot change the way we work at Microsoft, as well as some data that I think you'll find quite valuable. But I'll turn it back to Sherman and the people that are smarter than me on this call.
I don't know about smart. That's why we brought you in. You're the big guns. So here's our agenda. If you look at the agenda from what you got in your invite, it's probably a little bit different. We just changed some ordering around. So Evan's going to talk about work trends in the AI landscape and whatnot, and just kind of set things up. Then we're going to dive into it. I won't kind of dig too deeply into this. I'm going to get right into it and hand it over to Evan. He's going to share his screen because he's got some interesting slides that he's going to do.
Great. Thank you, Sherman. So what I'm going to share with everybody is just some data that we've gathered internally at Microsoft, since many of us have had the privilege of running Copilot for, well, myself, several months. And I love this data because it's data that was generated both externally on artificial intelligence, but also internally from feedback from employees. And really the way that I look at this, it's how it's changed the way that I work. Not the way that I work for Microsoft, but the way that I work as an employee of any company. And some of the stuff here is really interesting. There's a link that you can click on. It's active at the bottom of the screen, and it's a nice 20-page document that goes into some extensive detail about artificial intelligence, in this case done by Harvard Business School, so very reputable in the work that they did with Boston Consulting Group. And this is great data that in my personal life I've experienced as well, is that increase in completion of tasks and things like decrease in time spent on the completion of tasks. And we'll get into some more of these details a little later, but I encourage you to click on that link, have a look at that document. There's a lot of really valuable information within it. As we go through some of these more important data points, there's three that I've highlighted on this slide that really resonated with me, and I wanted to share them with you. So really, it's about being more productive. So the internal employees at Microsoft that were polled across all the different divisions of Microsoft, 87% agree that it's more productive. So they've been more productive with these tools. And then I'm going to explain a little bit why I've experienced numbers like that as well. The one that I really like is 79% of time spent, or less time spent on mundane tasks, things that I don't really want to do or things that I'm not very good at in the first place. Copilot's really helped out with that. And getting started on an initial draft is one of the big things for me. I'm not good at creating content from scratch. What I've done in the past is gone out, grabbed a whole bunch of different people's documents, built my content for my audience, trying to make it the best content combined. I don't have to do that anymore. I just tell Copilot, grab these documents, I point it to the documents and spit out a nice deck for me, at least to start with. In a lot of cases, it's so good that I can use it the way that it's been created. So I spent a lot of time in presentations. That was really valuable to me. When we looked across the entire group of people that we surveyed, it was interesting. I mean, 12% of a ROI or increase in performance is maybe not enough, but 180% is a little extensive. So I focus on that 68% number, and this is pure time savings. So 68% are saving about 1.5 hours of time on a consistent basis once they switch to Copilot. It's interesting too, when people were asked, well, if we took Copilot away, how would you feel about that? And the overwhelming response was they wouldn't be very happy, because people have really learned how to use these tools. And we focus on this return on investment. And I know we look at it from just a pure cost savings perspective, but I want to tell you something more that I think is important to understand about what Copilot's been able to do. So how has it been able to achieve some of these metrics? From a meetings perspective, I'm a Teams guy doing Copilot. So when I found Copilot in Teams, wow, what a difference it made for me personally. So for example, getting me to pay attention for more than 60 minutes in a meeting is hard, unless the meeting is really engaging. We often have meetings that run longer than that. So what do? Well, if I doze off in a meeting, I try to keep my eyes open. If I'm not paying attention in a meeting, I can always ask Copilot for a summary of what's been going on in that conversation or in that meeting. Microsoft jam packs me with meetings, and people don't respect calendars very well. So I get meetings that overlap or meetings that are booked at the same time. What do? I can miss a meeting now, and I can ask Copilot, hey, what did I miss? Or if I join 10 minutes late, instead of me interrupting everybody to say, sorry, I was late, can you catch me up? Copilot notices that I'm late, and it catches me up. So it tells me what I've missed, so all of a sudden I can contribute and feel more valuable in that meeting and not interrupt the flow of it. Data analysis isn't something that I do a lot of, and that's important. I don't use Excel a lot, so I'm not very good at it. But Copilot in Excel, when I do need it, makes a big difference. Makes me an expert almost in using Excel. Content creation, I already talked to you about it. I don't create content from scratch because I'm not good at it, so I ask Copilot to do it. And email processing, as simple as that sounds. One of my colleagues came back from vacation in July or August, 200, 300 email in his inbox. So what did he do? He said, Copilot, which are the important emails that I need to address? So instead of taking a couple of days to catch up from being out of the office for a couple of weeks, it took him a couple hours. So there's a lot of ways that we can use Copilot that change the way we work and improve our work lives. So lastly, and the last slide I'll leave you with is this one. So I look at this from a time savings perspective. That's just the tip of the iceberg. If I save an hour every week, what am I going to do with that hour? Am I going to go play golf? No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be more productive. I'm going to do things that are more interesting to me, help elevate me within the organization and help elevate the organization overall, because I'm doing things now that I might not have been able to do. So it's increasing my well-being and satisfaction because I feel like I'm contributing more to the organization. My quality of work goes up because Copilot's helping me. I had to write a bio the other day for one of the telco partners, and I'm like, I haven't written one of these for ages. I asked Copilot to do it, sent it to them, and they're like, this is amazing. They said, it's too long. Can you reduce it? I didn't do that. I asked Copilot, can you make this shorter? 2 paragraphs, fewer words, more concise. Done. I didn't have to do much except tell it where to go find a job description for me. And this whole idea of reducing digital debt, it's kind of a bit of a interesting concept, but again, I don't have to focus as much time on mundane tasks anymore. I'm doing things that are more exciting to me, and I ask Copilot, do the stuff that I don't enjoy doing. That's not how I ask Copilot, but I think you get my drift. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I said the same thing in 2017 when Microsoft released Teams. Learn how to use Teams to change the way that you work and share that with your colleagues. Learn from each other, because there's so much we can do with Copilot. We're just touching the tip of the iceberg. So I'm going to turn it back to the team from CDW and let them get into some more of these details. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Evan. Awesome. I wasn't going to show this, but I'll quickly. I mean, it just flows from Evan's bits quite nicely. This is from Microsoft's latest Work Trends Index, and if you haven't read those over the last few years, they're awesome for help. Microsoft's doing a lot of research and studies on how tools like Teams, Viva, and now Copilot are actually helping and benefiting organizations. So I won't go through every little thing here. The bit that Evan touched on is we're saving time, and what are we doing with it? So that 67% at the bottom, they could focus on more important work when something like a Copilot helps them take away some of the menial tasks. And so think about the average savings in the report says that users are reporting a daily savings of about 14 minutes per day, which doesn't sound like a lot. It's 1.2 hours per week. Doesn't sound like a lot. I'll come back to that maybe later, but if you think about someone who might make, just for easy math, say 80K per year, who then roughly makes $40 per hour, you might understand where I'm going with that dollar figure. The other thing my laser pointer is kind of, that's why. There we go. Let me throw up this other one. And again, I wasn't going to do this, but I think it's a fun thing. And again, Evan touched on it in that same work trends index. When they ask people, hey, would you rather keep Copilot or would you rather us give you a free lunch at various intervals? And everyone said, well, we'll keep Copilot, thanks. Because now that we've tried it, we don't want to go without it. I'm going to go, so I hope that sets up the stage a little bit. I'm going to go pretty quickly into my little bits here, and I'll slow down where I think there's important things to do. And the reason why I'm speeding up a little bit is because one, this is being recorded, so you can come back and look at it at any time. Two, at the end, I want to try and do a real life Copilot demo that's in our environment, and so you can see in actuality how it's going to work, and not just some marketing videos or whatever. No offense, Microsoft. Okay, how can Copilot help in your organization? So look for where does AI, where does automation fit in? It's in the same category, right? Same buckets. So when you're doing stuff when an organization has a lot of manual content creation work, this is where automation can help, because those are probably unique every time, but AI can. So oftentimes we're trying to come up with something new, and we're at writer's block or whatever, and we all know that oftentimes if we're looking at something and editing, it's a lot easier than coming up with something from scratch. So when there's a system, a mechanism that allows us to give us that first, even if it's v.1, it's at least a start, and then we it helps our creative juices flow, and then we can edit and iterate over that. It's our personalized content. It takes my tone. It learns how I speak versus how Evan speaks, and versus how Karen speaks. And when I say speaks, I mean writing style and stuff like that. So it helps with that. And it also is taking through the large language models, the AI, I'll call it AI engines. It might not be the technically accurate term out there, but it's anything that's relying on that. Instead of just my brain, I'm tapping into a lot of other brains and thoughts out there. So here's some examples, day in the life. How can a recruiting manager, as an example, use something like Copilot? Hey, we got to craft a job description. Yes, we can do a copy paste and look up last year's version, or 5 years ago, there was a version for the same role or similar role, and I'm going to edit over that. Or I can just say, hey, create a job description for a social media manager who's very familiar with all the latest platforms that I don't even know what they are. And so it'll do that first draft. If I have a meeting with the candidates, I can summarize the interview notes, and then finally use Copilot to help draft that offer based on the job description, based on the interview notes, and then I can tweak it, right? And it's never going to send it on my behalf. It's a very good starting point. Gets the juices flowing. A finance professional, I'm no Excel expert. I don't think I ever will be. I've seen those massive Excel spreadsheets and all the crazy numbers and Power Pivot and Power Query and all these things and the analysis of it. This is where artificial intelligence can help people do things like, hey, give me the highlights of all the numbers and show me the trends that's going on in this spreadsheet. And then from there, we can maybe share that solution using Microsoft Loop. A marketing manager, again, you can read that, might use Copilot to, again, get started on some campaigns, create a presentation deck, and then finally compose that email at the end. Okay, what is Copilot? It's probably what you're here for. Let's dig into it a little bit. The first thing I'll say is You're going to hear Copilot with a capital C and then Copilot with lowercase c quite a lot. Microsoft likes to say Copilot's in the lowercase c as in, and it's a good name because it's not us. It's not the pilot. If we were the pilot, it's something there to help us along. We're flying the plane, so to speak, if we're going to use that analogy, but the Copilot is there to aid us and assist. This slide is basically saying, hey, there's a lot of different Copilot experiences out there from Microsoft. They're just starting to come out. You're going to hear more and more. I think Copilot for Dynamics 365, see this slide's already out of date. They're calling it Copilot for Sales. There's another one, Copilot for Services, which used to be called something else. You know, there's more and more and more. Even the one in the bottom there, Windows Copilot, is now just Microsoft Copilot. Today, obviously, we're talking about how Copilot fits in the Microsoft 365 space, and the official name is Microsoft. It is Copilot for Microsoft 365. This slide you may have seen already a few times around the web or in Microsoft's material as well. Just want to differentiate quickly Copilot for Microsoft 365, that last column there. So Bing Chat, if you use Microsoft Edge and go to Bing, you can access AI and ask Bing through chat some questions like you used to search for. So that's the experience. It's free for everybody, and everybody can use it. So the foundational capabilities, by the way, is just the ability for the AI engine to answer questions, generate content, reason over data, and so on. The web grounding is what that means is it's accessing the latest information on the web. When you sign into Bing with your Entra ID, aka Azure identity, you now get the commercial data protection. And what that means is your chat data is not saved. Microsoft does not have access to your data, and your org data is protected and is not used to train the models for the large language models. What Copilot for Microsoft 365 adds is that enterprise-grade protection, which then now says, okay, well, it's not that I can see into my data, but it says we understand you have security, privacy, identity, and compliance policies in place. We're going to respect that. Your data is your data. It never leaves. It's protected within that tenancy, and it's always within our control. It does not change anything from Microsoft's perspective about data residency or data handling promises. So, and since Copilot acts on behalf of us, it doesn't have any extra access. That's the first thing to answer, right? What can Copilot see? It only sees what we, as the pilot, I'll use that, and again, that analogy, only what we can see and what we have permission to see. And finally, the Microsoft Graph, which is really what it's not talked about a lot because it's kind of the underpinning of Microsoft 365. The graph is really, really important to how, even before Copilot, to how Microsoft 365 functions for us. It's all of the different signals. So when I have a chat with Karen, when I have a chat with Evan, when I have a chat with Kelly, it understands that. It understands that I'm having chats with them more often than I'm having to chat with Jeff, for example. So, sorry, Jeff. And Karen just gave me a time warning, so I'm going to speed up. So, and we access it through the Microsoft 365 apps. I'm going to zip through these because pretty straightforward in the sense that Copilot is allowing us to use a natural language. So we ask questions like we would with our friends. Please give me a summarization of my to-do list, so on, right? Copilot combines the power of the large language models with our data in the Microsoft Graph. So that's our calendar, email, chats, documents, and so on. Anything I have access to in my Microsoft 365 environment and the Microsoft 365 apps. So for example, in Microsoft Word, I'm generating a report from that content, from that query, and the internet. So the web to access the latest content. There is no time gap to generate content for us as a starting point. So at Ignite, Satya said, Copilot is the new UI to help us gain access into our organization's knowledge and to the world's knowledge. And it's your agent that helps you act on that knowledge. And I like that quote a lot. So behind the scenes, what makes that work is semantic index for Copilot, which Karen will get into later. Copilot is embedded across your 365 apps. I think I'll probably skip this one along. Basically, we access Copilot either through one of these apps, the core Microsoft 365 apps, or through the web browser. It doesn't have to be Edge. I happen to use Edge because it integrates nicely. But I believe it does work with Chrome, and I believe it will work with Safari as well. What this slide's intended to convey is that it's not just the content, which is all the stuff that is a Word document, a spreadsheet, and so on. It's the graph that connects all of that together, but it's the context around that. So rather than me saying finance report, Excel, Adele, November 8th, and having kind of doing a search, which we've all been doing for the last, I don't know, 20 years or whatever, it's now create a summary of the finance report that Adele discussed in the meeting on November 8th. And the Copilot understands that context to understand what that means exactly, right? Based on what I just asked. What else can we talk about? We've touched on these points here and there. This is just formalizing it maybe in a slide. I don't think I'm going to talk too much about this. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, let's get into, let's spend some time a little bit about what happens when I ask Copilot a question or give it a task. So it's using the large language model to interact with our data in the Microsoft Graph, right? I'm going to use an example where I say, hey, summarize the discussions I had with Taylor, Mark, and Mo, whatever, this past week about the Contoso RFP document and list my action items, right? So it's asking a very specific request. It's no longer just me searching for documents, Contoso RFP, right? And then I have to sort through the search results. It's more than that. It's me asking the system something. It's Copilot then saying, okay, what is it that you're really asking? What do you have access to? So that's the pre-processing and what they call the grounding. The grounding means, hey, you're not just asking, you're going to see the common name Taylor probably throughout my examples. It's probably, you're not asking about Taylor Swift. There's a Taylor in the organization. There's probably 10 Marks in the organization. Which Mark do you mean? I didn't specify because I don't have to. It knows based on the Microsoft Graph data that the context of my question, right? It helps understand that, puts it all together, and it says, hey, send that to the large language model in whatever language the large language model needs, right? It's here's all the data, here's what the user asked for, I've modified it, here's some raw data for you to process, LLM. It's going to process that. It's going to say, here's what I found, here's all the context. I'm going to throw it back to you in the Microsoft Graph. And then Graph says, well, you've said something a little bit extra related to Contoso, related to Mark and Mo, that maybe Sherman shouldn't see. So I'm going to take that out, right? That's not relevant. Plus, he's not allowed to see it. So that goes away. And it generates an informed response, which is then returned to the corresponding app. And this is retrieval of some seeded, I'll call it seeded content because that was my prompt and the Graph threw some content to the LLM. It's used to generate content, and that's what's known as retrieval augmented generation. I don't know if that's a new term. It must be relatively new anyways. They call it RAG. I think that's terrible, but it is what it is. And this process, by the way, is not one and done. It's not prompt to Copilot to Graph to LLM and back to the app. It's not just one process. It's going back and forth and being iterative between Graph and the LLM and Copilot as kind of the orchestration engine over a few different iterations, and who knows how many times. This is a more complete version of the Graph. I know it's very busy, but it's basically detailing what I just reviewed there, along with some plugins that you can build upon so that you can access, so you can leverage the power of Copilot with your data that sits outside of Microsoft 365. And how can you bring that safely into the Copilot experience? It's through these things called a Microsoft Graph connector. which gives you read-only information. So state and time is what the connectors do. And the other option is a plugin. So that, for example, if Jira or ServiceNow are your supporting organizational platforms, you're able to pull real-time information. If I say, how many tickets do I have open in Jira or ServiceNow, whatever, it's going to go and retrieve that and bring it back in. So that's what a plugin is versus a connector. But I'm not going to talk about that anymore because the next step is to figure out what this thing called a semantic index is. I didn't talk about it too much in my little flow there, but Karen's going to dive into that.
Great, thank you, Sherman. Okay, so let's jump into how the semantic index powers Copilot for Microsoft 365. So when you submit a prompt, Microsoft 365 Copilot brings in your universe of data via Microsoft Graph. It uses the semantic index for Copilot to correlate activity signals, retrieving indexed information that's uniquely relevant to you. It then presents the combination of your prompt with what was retrieved to the large language model to generate an informed response. Importantly, semantic index works on two levels. By default, it indexes information within SharePoint inside your organization's tenant. And second, each user also has their own separate index for email and their individual important documents, like files shared with them, where they've commented, or were @mentioned, and more. This two-pronged approach is what increases relevancy, allowing Microsoft 365 Copilot to orchestrate AI-generated results that are unique to you as a user, based on your explicit access to information. Semantic Index for Copilot improves the search experience across Microsoft 365, in addition to information retrieval used to ground Microsoft 365 Copilot responses. And a great way to demonstrate the semantic index for real is by showing two sets of search results in SharePoint, one without leveraging the semantic index and one with it. So here we're searching on Project Melbourne Ship Room. Notice we have a typo. So on the left, without the semantic index, you can see results are retrieved based on keywords and ranking, as well as last modified date for relevance, file summary for context, but it's not the specific information that we're looking for. Conversely, on the right, with the semantic index, instead of just a list of links, notice the informative answer right at the top. And you can see also that the index has mapped semantic signals such as people relationships, recent activities surrounding the content that the user has access to, all of this to help determine the intent of your search and formulate an answer. Semantic index improves the search experience across Microsoft 365 and will help ground your prompts once you've deployed Microsoft 365 Copilot. And you can add Microsoft Graph connectors in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center in the search and intelligence experience to work with the semantic index for Copilot. Holy smokes, Microsoft has a lot of words, a lot of names. So if you already use Graph connectors and Microsoft 365, these are going to work without any changes. So there are options for common data sources that you see listed here as well. So in this case, we'll set up an enterprise website, and this will show us a few options to define the site, who can search the data source, and whether connector results are shown in search. Then for even more options, we can go into advanced settings for more granular options to define meta tags, exclusions, semantic property labels, schema, and search permissions. Once you have a connection up and running, you'll be able to see and take advantage of integrated results using SharePoint Search and Microsoft 365 Search with a connected site. So in this case, we'll just perform a simple keyword search for troubleshooting instructions, and results are found in SharePoint locations as well as that external connected site. And you'll notice that the result is similar to the search query and in context with my role, but it doesn't contain any of the keywords in the query. We just simply get the answer that we're looking for. A lot of the information that you work with today might sit outside of Microsoft 365. So how can you safely bring that information into your Copilot experience to ground generative AI results? Our first option lets you use Microsoft Graph connectors to integrate the data sources that you want with Semantic Index for Copilot. This option pre-indexes defined read-only information used for retrieval with your prompts to drive the most relevant AI-generated responses. Another option uses managed and trusted plugins, which can be a few different types, including OpenAI plugins, Microsoft Teams message extensions, and Power Platform connectors. And with plugins, instead of pre-indexing information based on your prompt, they optimize for real-time API-based data retrieval to help inform generated responses, and additionally, can even optionally perform actions on your behalf, like writing back data. Both options follow Microsoft's comprehensive security, compliance, and privacy approach, and respect the boundaries that you define within your organization's data services. Microsoft 365 Chat allows users to access data across their Microsoft 365 graph, leverage LLM functionality, and leverage cross-app intelligence, simplifying their workflow across multiple apps. Microsoft 365 Chat is available in Teams, Bing, Microsoft Edge, and the Microsoft 365 app. Copilot Lab is a new experience that will help people build new work habits for a new AI-powered era of productivity. It's a place to experiment, to learn the art and science of prompting. You'll learn how to turn a good prompt into a great one, share your favorite prompts with coworkers, and get inspired as we all learn to work in a whole new way together. With Microsoft 365 Copilot, clean data in means clean data out. Clean meaning current and accurate. So quality and accuracy of the responses that Copilot for Microsoft 365 produces rests on the data that lives inside your tenant. Source material to answer queries comes from your organization. So how good is the user source material for Copilot to consume? Do you keep everything? Do you archive outdated information on a set schedule? Where does that data go, right? Where do users store their data? In a network file share, OneDrive, SharePoint sites? In the real world, is your data perfect? Do your users always follow the policies for where to store certain types of information? If you can find it within Microsoft Search, Copilot for Microsoft 365 can use it. So Delve suggests documents of interest to users and limits suggestions to documents that users can access. Similarly, Copilot consumes documents available to users and includes their content when responding to user prompts. Oversharing can happen, right? So for example, private document libraries, people use anyone sharing links, entire company sharing links. These will expose data that may have not been intended to be shared. Now to segue into how secure is Microsoft 365 Copilot? Seeing some questions about this in the chat. Let's dive right in. Microsoft 365 Copilot is built on Microsoft's comprehensive approach to security, compliance, privacy, and responsible AI. So, you know it's enterprise ready. Microsoft believes that the development and deployment of AI must be guided by the creation of an ethical framework. They have 6 core principles that should guide the work around AI. 4 core principles of fairness, reliability, and safety, privacy and security, and inclusiveness, underpinned by 2 foundational principles of transparency and accountability. So the first principle is fairness. For AI, this means that AI systems should treat everybody fairly, avoid affecting similarly situated groups of people in different ways. The second principle is reliability and safety. So to build trust, it's also important that AI systems operate reliably, safely, and consistently under normal circumstances and in unexpected conditions. It's also crucial to develop AI systems that can protect private information and resist attacks. So, sorry, for the 1 billion people with, and then finally, inclusiveness, right? So for the 1 billion people with disabilities around the world, AI technologies can be a game changer. Inclusive design practices can help system developers understand and address potential barriers in a product environment that could unintentionally exclude people. Improving intelligibility requires that stakeholders can comprehend how and why AI systems function so that they can identify potential performance issues, safety and privacy concerns, biases, exclusionary practices, unintended outcomes. And their final principle is accountability. They believe that the people who design and deploy AI systems must be accountable for how their systems operate. Data is the fuel that powers AI technology, and you need to trust what your technology partners are doing with that data. So first, as Ed was asking in the chat, does it stay within our tenant? Yes, your data is your data. That means it's yours to own and control, yours to choose how you want to leverage and monetize, not Microsoft's. It's not used to train or enrich the AI models without your permission, so you don't have to worry about anybody other than your organization benefiting from AI that's trained on your data. And your data and AI models are protected at every step by the most comprehensive enterprise compliance and security controls in the industry. Microsoft's AI-powered copilots are changing the way we work. So while AI-generated content has the potential to revolutionize industries around the world, it also raises concerns about the risk of IP infringement claims. So to address this concern, Microsoft announced that their new Copilot copyright commitment, which extends Microsoft's existing intellectual property indemnity support to commercial Copilot services and Bing Chat Enterprise, soon to be renamed Copilot because everything's Copilot now, and builds on their previous AI customer commitments. So if a third party sues a commercial customer for copyright infringement, Microsoft will defend the customer and pay the amount of any adverse judgments or settlements that result from the lawsuit, as long as the customer used the guardrails and the content filters that Microsoft's built into the Copilot products. And another one of our participants was asking, can admins with elevated rights see reports on how Copilot is used? So yes, details are captured when users interact with Copilot. Events include how and when users interact with Copilot, in which Microsoft 365 service the activity took place, references to the files that were accessed during the interaction. If the files have a sensitivity label applied, that's also captured. So I'm sure CDW's admins have seen me since we got the early access program going salary information and just trying to find the holes in the security. And it's, at least for us, we've set it up pretty well, haven't been able to find any flaws. So all right, so on to another pre-canned video demo here. Microsoft 365 Copilot works with the data security controls that you have. Rewind that. So it works with the data security controls that you have in place for file accessing, file access, labeling, classification, and data loss prevention. So in this example, Mario Rogers works for Violet Martinez, and both are on the same team at Contoso. Mario and Violet are also members in the same group working on Project Falcon. So we'll start with Violet, who's been working with procurement and contract management teams to sell their partner the Mark 8 quadcopters. And as you can see, the file is labeled highly confidential with restricted access. So this is done through Microsoft Purview, right? This describes all the terms in the purchase agreement. Because Violet has access to the file, she's also able to search for and find it in SharePoint and Microsoft365.com. And of course, Violet can also navigate to the file's location in the agreements folder of the project site to find the purchase agreement. So now let's look at Mario's experience. Even though he's on the same team and he's also working on Project Falcon with Violet, if he tries to search for the Contoso purchase agreement, he won't find it. There are a few purchasing agreements that he does find without sensitive information, but not the one that Violet's working on. And if Mario knows the location of the purchase agreement and tries to navigate to it directly, it just appears as an empty folder to him. So now when Mario launches Word on the web and creates a blank document, then prompts Microsoft 365 Copilot to summarize the purchase agreement as a reference file. Because Microsoft 365 Copilot respects the permissions of its user, Copilot can't access the purchase agreement. But if we switch back to Violet's screen, because she has permissions to access the purchase agreement, she can use Microsoft Copilot to summarize the file. You can see it'll create a summary of the purchase agreement, and Violet decides to keep it. And then automatically, data security controls from Purview discover sensitive information that's found in the Copilot generated content. The document is automatically labeled as highly confidential, and policies are enforced to restrict access to the document. So to recap what we saw in that demo, Microsoft Purview compliance capabilities will support your risk and compliance requirements for Copilot. With communication compliance, all new and existing policies that detect Teams messages will automatically detect Copilot interactions. It can analyze user prompts, Copilot responses to detect inappropriate or risky interactions, sharing of confidential information. With auditing, details are captured whenever users interact with Copilot, as I showed in that previous screenshot. So events will include how and when users interact with Copilot, which service activity took place, blah, blah, blah. Said all of this already. Content search, users prompts. So all the users prompts to Copilot and the responses from Copilot are stored in a user's mailbox. These can be searched and retrieved when the user's mailbox is selected as a source for a search query. The discovery, you use the same query process to select mailboxes, retrieve user prompts to Copilot, responses from Copilot. Collections and review sets can then be further be put on hold or exported. And of course, any existing retention policies that support automatic retention and deletion previously configured for Teams chats will now automatically include user prompts and responses to and from Copilot for Microsoft 365. Policies. So the policies are identified by the location Teams chats and Copilot for Microsoft 365 interactions, but users don't need to be using Teams chats for this policy to apply to them. So again, Copilot respects the permissions in your tenant for documents and data. Documents must be in the cloud to be incorporated into Copilot for Microsoft 365 responses. That is with an asterisk, of course. As Sherman mentioned, with Microsoft Graph connectors, you can ingest that data, bring it into the graph where it's indexed by the semantic index, yada, yada. Here all day, folks. Your Copilot for Microsoft 365 implementation can be a catalyst to build smart saving habits, right? How many of us are perfect across our organization with smart saving? Not even like I have never seen an organization with completely perfect saving habits, but if you are looking for a reason to refine yours, this is the time to do it while getting ready for Copilot. And if you're concerned that your users don't understand the fundamentals of which space to save the data, CDW can help with that. And I have walked many organizations through the basics of what goes in OneDrive, what goes in SharePoint or Teams, how to connect them using shortcuts in Sync. Okay. And one of the main differentiators for Microsoft versus other competitors in the AI market is that there are significant controls built throughout Copilot for Microsoft 365. So Copilot inherits your security, compliance, and privacy policies set up in Microsoft 365. So this is why it's crucial for organizations to have mature data security, governance, and compliance policies in place, and the associated controls configured. So from using Purview sensitivity labels to classify and tag files, to SharePoint site access controls to restrict who's allowed to access certain containers, we need to make sure that our data is clean, secure, compliant to get the best use of Copilot for Microsoft 365. And CDW, we care about your data, and especially our services team, we are experienced in implementing these solutions. We are excited and happy to help. Okay, so this is my last slide before I hand it over to Sherman for what you've all been waiting for, the live demos. I want to give him lots of time, so I'll just quickly go over this. At the tenant level, there are a handful of steps you can take to ensure that your data is secure. Again, CDW, we are ready, we're excited to help you make this happen. All right, back over to you, Sherman.
Awesome, thanks. My system is struggling. This is when 16 gigs of RAM is no longer enough. Mike Taylor, if you're on the call, you know what I'm talking about. I need a new machine. Let me try and share this again and go back to this. Get rid of that. Okay. I'm not going to go through every single demo that I, kind of plan and walk through and pray to the demo gods this morning. They might not be happy with me anyway. So I think it was Bryce that asked, hey, I am the biggest critic sometimes, one of the biggest critics of Microsoft naming conventions. They know it. They don't necessarily have the best, most creative names. And so, yes, I'm here to talk about use cases for 365. Let's see if the next slide will go. Yes, it does. So I really wish they called this Cortana. Yes, I play Halo. I wouldn't say I'm super proficient with it, but it would have been nice if they brought that back. We can still call them Copilots, like lowercase c, but I would much rather. The reason why I bring that up, what triggered that for me was I saw one of Microsoft's demo videos, and they were using the HoloLens, and they were saying, hey Copilot, show me blah, blah, blah. I'm like, man, it should be Cortana. Anyway, I'll try and do demo. Let's see if this goes. And let me get my browser up and running. Again, just to give you a taste of what it might look like in your environment. It's new to us. Obviously, it just went to general availability on November 1st. So we've only just been playing with it. We can't do it in a demo environment. So there's, I'm nervous about showing something that's live and customer data and whatnot. The first thing I'll say is there's this thing called Copilot Lab. I think Karen touched upon it in one of her slides. You can't get to this unless you have a Copilot license. We tested that. It's kind of a weird thing because there's nothing really special about this. It just gives you an idea of things that you can say, create an agenda, draft a plan, summarize this document, and things like that. But I thought it was helpful, and I wanted to show this to say, Microsoft putting things out there to help us try and get a good start on Copilot itself. Okay, I'm going to invoke Copilot. So I'm in Edge. In my Copilot, in my Edge browser, I have this Copilot button up here. I'm going to I'll clear this. One of the things I've seen, I think Karen's answered it and Jeff's answered, or other people have answered it. One, Microsoft is not training any large language models from any organization's data. It's just not happening. Thanks for the Xbox cap, Karen. Your data is secure. It does not, it's not getting used to train. One of the other questions, sorry, I just wanted to touch on this. Maybe I'll get back to it. You can't, and we can't train it either, right? So we're just leveraging the mechanisms, the AI, based on what Microsoft has released to us in these Copilot, in these first releases of Copilots. As Karen just mentioned, you can extend upon them and build your own, and we'll see what happens coming down the road for that. But for now, we can't directly affect Copilot or the LLMs. Okay, so I'm in Microsoft 365 chat. Again, different from Bing chat. I'm not going to demo that. That's basically when I'm in Bing chat, it's nothing to do with my organization's data at all. If I say, find the Contoso RFP document, it won't know what I'm talking about. Inside the Microsoft 365 chat, it does know what I'm talking about. So I can say, for example, I have some pre-canned things here. I'm going to say, summarize my chats from last week about Ignite. And it's going to search what I have been talking about and what chat groups, one-on-one chats, anything in channels that I belong to, right? So here it says, Kelly, I don't know if she's on the call, but Kelly's been doing a lot of work for us to kind of get ramped up on Copilot. That's why you see her name a lot. And so here's a summary of the things that she's done and whatnot. Every time I put this prompt in, it comes up with slightly different results because, again, it doesn't remember anything. And so every time I'm doing it, it's going through that whole process, sending all that information to the cloud, to Copilot, to the LLMs, and so on. I'm going to try this next one. Show my next meeting with Aaron. There might be a seed planted here. And by the way, I hope this is coming through okay on your systems. Okay, great. I have a meeting with Karen. We are going to talk about strategy for getting tickets to see Taylor Swift here in Vancouver. The meeting set at 1:25. Is there anything else you need to know? And so, there's a prompt. What is the meeting about? And so you'll notice that first response, it did not give anything back about the actual agenda, just the title, the time, and so on. And if there were other people involved, it would also say, Kelly and Jeff are also in on the meeting. And so she and I had a few email conversations back and forth. She asked, hey, how are we going to pay for these tickets and so on. And it's found that information now beyond anything to do with just my calendar. It's gone into my email and said, hey, this is what you guys have talked about as well. So you can do a lot of these type of things and asking questions in this generic manner inside. Again, I'm invoking it from inside but my browser, but this chat they've incorporated it as an app, so you can leverage it from inside Teams as well. Let's see. I will try this one. Let's see what happens. I'm going to start a new chat because I'm going to want to. Where did it go? Go away. There we go. New chat. So why I do the new chat is I kind of want to flush the cache, so to speak, flush the memory. It now has no idea what I just asked. We're starting from scratch. So I'm going to say summarize yesterday's, I think this is okay, BYOL meeting, and let me know if I have any action items. Now, again, it was only one meeting, and you might go, what's a BYOL? It's bring your own lunch. I don't think Copilot knows anything about it. It's going to go through, look at yesterday's meeting notes. And when I say meeting notes, I don't mean that someone actually took anything. We recorded it, we transcribed it. By the way, neither of that is necessary anymore. Copilot will now do this, what I just asked, without explicit recording of the meeting. So it goes through it and says, here's what was talked about, including, by the way, the misspellings of Copilot. It's Copilot, no dash, no capital P. Sidebar, SharePoint has a capital P. I will live and die by that. Karen, that's an inside joke. Karen knows it's my pet peeve. Hey, 20 years with SharePoint. I have my rights. I know, Brian. 1 more minute. So here's the thing. Scan through that. There's no mention of someone named Cheyenne, but I'm going to say, what questions did Cheyenne ask? And it's going to say, hey, he asked a couple questions. I do want to, Brian, before you kick me off, I do want to do one quick generation example. I have Word, I think, ready to go here. I'll let that go. Power of the cloud. My internet connection is pretty good, so it's not that. Oh, that worked literally. That worked the last few times. Anyway, it does do it. I can do a screenshot. I don't know why I didn't do it this time. I wanted to show you in Word what that might look like if I wanted to generate something. Here, let's do this one. Let's do this one. This is where my system. Here we go. So I'm going to invoke Copilot. Please wait. I'm waiting. And sorry, I have to look down here because that's where my screen is. Hurry. This is where having a really good, here we go. So draft with Copilot, it shows up right in there. There's a quick sidebar. There's a / command that you can invoke Copilot. I won't get into that, but / command goes way back to Lotus days. I'm going to, wow. Sorry, Brian. I know you need to get to your stuff. But I think I just want to do this one thing and then I'll release it. There we go. Create a job description for a social media manager, companies in the film industry. I'm giving it as much details. Oh, how interesting. Well, that's good. It literally just worked 2 seconds ago. I don't know if the US is off today, so. The demo gods are not happy with me. this would normally generate a document. I wanted to show that inside the Office apps, you can use Copilot, give it a prompt like this, and it'll from scratch generate stuff. Then from that content, if I save it as a document inside OneDrive, inside SharePoint, I can then reference that and say, hey, create a PowerPoint deck out of it. Maybe we'll do another webinar where we can do that. I am going to
demos probably for our customers. If anyone's interested, really wants to spend some time with us, I'm sure we'd be happy to hop on a pre-sales.
I'm gonna let this go. Sorry, Brian, you have like 2 minutes, so I'll let you go. Go ahead, go for it. Do you want me to share my screen, or I guess since I'm already here?
Let me know if mine's coming through.
You got it. Okay.
All right. So I am happy to have 3 minutes. It's more than I need. So Sherman, Evan, Karen, amazing job. Hopefully everybody on the line saw Copilot kind of come to life, saw some of the questions that they had around data governance, security, readiness. So I'm just here to close this out. What does CDW do? We make technology work so people can do great things. That's our mission statement. 15,000 coworkers all over the world every day wake up to deliver this. How do we do that? We've had a long track record since 1984, and we're really proud of the acquisitions that were made over the last 3 or 4 years. We were in a financial position pre, during, and post-COVID to take advantage and really add services and strategic solutions capabilities across a whole host of areas. Oh, by the way, why are we uniquely qualified to help you and your organization on their Copilot journey? So this is me being a little bit brash, and I am the former sales guy. So we had our technical team take 57 minutes. I'll take 3. We are currently Microsoft Canada's Modern Workplace Partner of the Year. Super proud of this. We win a lot of awards, but this one felt different. This was Microsoft recognizing that we are not your grandmother's CDW, and we've come just leaps and bounds in terms of our professional services, managed services, customer success, and overall Microsoft excellence. And most importantly, my last slide, we have been rapidly building offerings for our clients. Most of our focus at this point in time is around readiness and around governance. We have 3 separate offerings today. You can see just brief details, and we're happy to share the one-pagers, because unless you've got really great vision, you're probably not able to read, the fine print of those, but we can absolutely, via your account team, your account manager and account executive, get those in your hands. We're happy to have loads and loads of conversations. Microsoft has really made some major investments into CDW, both in Canada and globally, to get us ready for Microsoft Copilot. And we're just really honored for everyone to take the time out of their day today. This is the highest attended webinar in CDW Canada history. We're super proud of that. The other thing I'll mention is we're going to have loads of events coming up in the future. So we're doing a Copilot Workshop Roadshow in Q1 of 2024. We did our first one in Toronto. We will be in all the major cities on the West Coast and East Coast of Canada. So pay close attention or reach out to your account team for that. And we'll also be doing a series of webinars in 2024 to really build off this in many different areas. So with that, again, we do not take your partnership and your business for granted. We are thrilled that you were able to come in and hopefully learn a lot about Copilot today. Thrilled that Evan and the Microsoft team were able to support us. And if we don't see you over the next couple of weeks, we wish everybody a safe and happy holidays as we go into the holiday season. So thank you very much and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. I hope that was useful. I'm trying to get caught up in the chats for anyone who wants to hang around.
I'm going to hang around. I see a lot of questions here. Somebody asked about multiple users using the same end users using the same computer. So as long as they're not logging on to the same account, they're not using the same identity, then they'll have separate, disparate instances of Copilot.
There was a question.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm. It's only chat, or can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, middle of the anyway. Thank you guys. So it's so wonderful. But the one thing that I trying to understand is a Copilot has a separate license?
Oh yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah, we didn't want to get into licensing just because licensing is always a complex matter with Microsoft.
No, I'm not trying to understand the price, but I just want to know. I thought is none of the part of the Office license, like a premium business, anything like that?
No, it's on top. It's an additional license on top.
So you have to get E3 or E5 at the beginning because it's catered for enterprise right now.
So it's
Microsoft
part of
did kind of.
part of E3.
No, it's not part of you. The requirement is that you have to have an E3 license before you can buy the Copilot license on top of it. So the Copilot license itself is $30 USD on top of the E3 or E5 license.
Okay, that's something new. Okay, because somehow I was told we need a premium license, and I just bought the premium license for myself to try.
Yeah, so Copilot will not be available for like users for now. It's only available for enterprise clients with above 300 that will buy 300 seats and above. And sometime next year, I think within the second quarter, Microsoft will then announce when they're going to be available for like end users or business premium and those kind of things.
Oh, okay.
I know none of us would ever say no to 100% discount.
What I would suggest is if you have any kind of detailed questions about your specific scenarios, what I suggest is reach out to your CDW account rep, who will then eventually, it'll probably funnel back to one of us on this call, and then we can have a more specific conversation about your licensing situation and your scenarios and what you have.
So we do have a complimentary, which Brian Matthew just showed earlier, a complimentary session from CDW where we can come in and talk to you about all those things. So if, as Sherman mentioned, yes, if you can reach out to your account managers, and then they will get in contact with the backend team, and then we will make sure we schedule a call with Sherman, Karen, or some of the other folks who's available, and they can talk to you more on Copilot.
Yeah, but so simple understand that anything that medium customer like because we are holding about 150 users license, so we are not even close to get this anytime soon, right?
We don't know Microsoft direction is yet. All to say that sometime next year they're gonna start focusing on the SMB model. But right now, the only communication we have is enterprise model.
The only thing I think we can say is that they're looking at it. It's in beta or preview, whatever they want to call it, and we don't know anything else. That's it.
Let me understand the enterprise model. And when you say enterprise, you say not less than 500 users.
Enterprise client, correct.
300.
300.
You have to buy 300 license.
Okay, got
upfront at the enterprise client. Yes.
Okay, that helped me to understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
Christopher Zhu, I don't know if you're still on the call. If you are, let me know, but I think you're not.
I am.
Oh, okay. You had asked something about can you use voice while on construction site. So I've tried it. It is available on Edge on my phone. Similar experience to the web browser. There's a little Bing chat icon at the bottom. You can click that, and of course, has access to our microphone, so it can take verbal commands that way. You can actually do that on the internet, on the browser here on the desktop as well. Photos taken from a cell phone uploaded to the cloud. Use template to generate construct. Haven't tried that. I haven't tried a lot of imagery stuff, to be honest. A lot of my tests so far has been to do with textual content. Playing around with PowerPoint a little bit. Karen's got something to say.
We definitely can't do that natively with Copilot. You definitely need to extend it to do it.
Okay, how good are the plugins so far?
So
are
the
they
plugins, sorry, go ahead.
No, I've had some experience with plugins for ChatGPT, right? They're depending on the developer, it's like pretty varying in terms of quality. So
yeah, I can't speak to that. When I'm thinking of plugins, usually I would imagine they would be for that use case internally developed, but there might be a solution that someone else has made. Okay. Yeah, let me take a look into that for you. And also thank you for your patience. I saw you ask the question before and then you had to bump it a couple times. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. But yeah, that would be a primary use case for it. It'd save a lot of time for us. So that's why I'm curious in particular. But internally developed makes sense because how do you get it to identify the parts of the photo that matter to you, right?
Hmm.
So
Thanks for asking that question. That actually is kind of in our use cases as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
no worries.
Here's my sense of it. Whether what it can do today is one thing, and that's a very advanced scenario that I don't know the answer to. We know that this is just the beginning. If you saw the keynote speech from Ignite with Satya, at one point he brings out I think he's the CEO of NVIDIA. I think his name's Jerry, and they talk about. He talks about specific AI waves that's coming, and we all know this is just the beginning. And so for Microsoft to announce this 8 months ago publicly, internally, I think they've had it about a year, is what I understand. Then they announced it in the spring. 8 months later, we're GA. I did not think we were going to go GA this year. I bet money on. I didn't bet money. I would have bet money that it was going to be 2024 if you had asked me like in the summertime. I would have said we're not seeing anything until 2024. Well, November 1st, here it is, and my licensing issue, a little hiccup aside, it does work. I don't know what happened there. We're just going to see more and more power and capabilities. Why I bring up NVIDIA is because they started talking about how in a partnership with Microsoft, they're building powerful infrastructure in partnership. They said, it's a subtle boast, without even trying, they were building a computer or infrastructure platform purposely for AI. But the byproduct of that is they ended up building the world's third most powerful supercomputer in a matter of a year, less than a year. So with that is going to come more capabilities, and I think we're already able to do it with things like Google. I can point, I think Google on my phone, I can point it to something and say, "What is this?" That's just the beginning, right? So I think from there to get more advanced scenarios like what you're asking for in the construction industry, and I used to work for Ledcor, so I'm sort of familiar with the construction industry. I think it's going to be, it's coming. I think I think it's an amazing time to be in construction. Hopefully, you're already seeing some benefits of things like VR and AR. I wish I was more involved with some of that stuff, because I just think it's fascinating. I think it's areas where technology can help specific industries and processes. And as my daughter's finishing grade 12 and she's wanting to become an architect, I don't even know if they're going to be even doing physical 3D models anymore. Like, why bother? Just do some kind of lens device, and you probably have a better experience for your clients using VR and AR. So,
Thanks, Sherman.
no problem. Just making sure there's a lot of stuff on here, which is great. Okay, I think it's 10 past. There's still a few people on the call, which is fine, including a very dapper looking Francis on his avatar with the bow tie. I don't think I've ever worn a bow tie.
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's really, really good to get this interaction. Thanks to everybody for joining. If again, I have a few more minutes. Happy to answer questions. And I'll again try and scroll through the chat. There was one that I saw that I thought was pretty important. I want to make sure that we answer it if they're still on the call. I don't think Michael Zhang's on the call anymore, is he?
Don is a comedian.
Oh, Michael, you are. You asked a question. I don't know if it was answered. It was about licensing. You can't buy 100. I think the minimum commitment is. Oh, Jeff answered it.
That's Ritu answered it.
Sorry.
Ritu answered it.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah.
As long as someone answered it. I hope you got your answer, Michael. So if not, feel free to come off.
And just to round it out, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, Sherman. It is a 300 minimum currently, and the point that I've been trying to beat to death right now is that there are offering is really aimed at large enterprise that won't really blink at buying 300 seats at 30-ish bucks or whatever it works out to be. So if you've got E3s or E5s, and I am not saying exactly what it is or what it costs, I'm just spitballing here, but you know, for small to medium organizations, you know, be patient. Be patient. We'll see what the future provides.
Amazing. I called John a comedian, and then here he is saying he's a literal comedian. So here we go. It's only a matter of time before Jeff gets on the stage and does stand up, honestly. So yeah, some good questions being asked about compliance, and I hope that makes sense. You know, concerns about things being sent to the cloud, right? This is a cloud solution. It's all going to be happening and processed in the cloud, but it's in your tenant. It doesn't leave your tenant. It's not used for other customers in the broader Microsoft, by Microsoft to train their models, anything like that. It all stays in your Microsoft 365 tenant.
I think I found what I was looking for. There's Graham McLaughlin. I think he's off the call now. This is my question too, but I'm trying to see what he was asked. He was following up on.
So do we want to cancel the, do you want to stop the recording? Do you want to keep it going?
We can probably stop the recording.